Welcome to Babies from Beyond, the podcast that gives all babies a voice, whether they are still in spirit or already earthside. I'm Lauren Dionysius, a former registered NICU nurse turned baby soul communicator, and I'm here to share the wisdom of today's babies to guide you on your motherhood journey. So today I wanted to talk to you about prematurity, why some babies are born premature and some babies are not. So for those of you who may not be aware, a premature baby is generally defined as a baby born less than 37 completed weeks. And at the time of recording, the earliest a baby can survive outside of the womb with our current technology anyway is 23 weeks, because that's when they have enough lung tissue generally for a machine or a ventilator to be able to do the breathing for them. So unless babies have enough lung tissue developed for gas exchange, which is the movement of oxygen and carbon dioxide across the lung membranes to facilitate basic life when it comes to being a human on the earth, which is the breath, then if they don't have enough lung tissue, then they're unable to survive. And generally, babies who are less than 23 weeks have not developed enough lung tissue to sustain their life through a machine. So prematurity then is anywhere from 23 weeks completed gestation to 37 weeks completed gestation or pregnancy. So this is a very wide range. And a baby who is born at 23 weeks is going to have a very different journey and a very different start to life than a baby born at 34 or 35 weeks who is more a late preterm baby who is pretty well developed. So there's a huge vastness or variability in the premature baby's journey because it's across such a long timeline, really. So I want to keep this episode more general because what I have come to notice is that a lot of the themes can be generalized across that timeline or that lifespan. It's often more a question of the degree or the intensity that is different. So for many years, as I worked as a registered NICU nurse, I really struggled with those babies who were born prematurely. Those babies who, for whatever reason, needed to come early for the health and safety of them or of their mothers, and were having this very difficult and often challenging start to life. And I didn't understand why a baby would choose this. Like, I could not compute that in my mind. I didn't understand it. And keeping in mind too that working as a NICU nurse and working in the nursery, only 1 in 10 babies end up in the nursery, which means 90% of births, the babies are okay and don't need to visit us. But those 10% that do come, they were 100% of my world. You know, I didn't have exposure to normal births. I didn't have exposure to healthy babies for the majority of my career. And so this gave me a really skewed version or perspective of babies and birth, but it also gave me this incredible access to these souls and being able to learn more about their journeys and why they would end up there. And, you know, this was only a question I thought to ask in the last few years of my career. It wasn't something that I thought about early. I just thought that it was all wrong. I felt that it shouldn't happen, that babies shouldn't be in NICU or special care, that something has gone wrong. Somebody's stuffed up, or there's been just a random accident or incident, or sometimes things happen. I was never able to understand it, but also never was able to receive an answer that made sense to me, something that I could make peace with. And it was only after connecting and communicating with babies and what they shared with me about their journey that I was able to finally find some peace and some understanding about why this happens. And the biggest thing for me is that I've learnt in all areas of life is that these things happen. If things were not meant to happen, then they wouldn't happen. To me, it's as simple as that. So when I was able to understand that, I started to think, okay, why? Why is this happening? If babies are being born prematurely, like all over the world, and there's special facilities and hospitals built purposefully to support these babies, and there's research trials and investigations and all of these things that are trying to support these babies and make their journeys better, like there's obviously a reason behind it. Because as I said, if it wasn't meant to happen, if a baby was not meant to end up in NICU or special care, then they wouldn't be there. So as I started to ask why, then I finally started to get some answers. And that's what I wanted to share in today's episode. So what I've come to learn is that for some babies, it's very clear that they had decided to start their journey as a premature baby. It was, how can I say this, orchestrated on the divine level in the bigger picture for this to happen. And often situations are set up, whether it's a complication in pregnancy or something that happens in birth, that is, as much as our human mind can understand anyway, planned or provided on the divine level in order for this outcome to unfold, in order for a baby to be born prematurely. And for these babies, what I found with them is many of them were old souls who had been to Earth before, probably been hundreds of times before. They knew the drill. The majority of them come as normal babies, like 37 weeks or more, generally fairly healthy. They been there, done that. They knew what it was like to start their journey here on Earth as what we would define as a term baby. But they also shared that what makes us think that a term baby is right and a premature baby is wrong. And that's one thing I really had to shift in my own mind. They're just different. It's like, yes, okay, a term baby obviously has a lot more meat on them. They are more developed. They are better adjusted to the earth. They are able to feed better. They can do things on their own. But what's to say that a premature baby or their birth is wrong? What I learned is that these souls were choosing to have a different experience of being a human, to have a different experience of those first days, weeks, months as a little person on the earth, where they did need more support, where they did need more guidance. And, as hard as it can be, do experience more what we would describe as trauma in many ways. And it's not just the physical, for example, like the physical damage that can happen for a baby that's on long-term ventilation. I mean, things are different now because the interventions have become much more gentle and much better at supporting these babies. But I know when I first started, you could easily have a baby on a ventilator for months on end. And, the damage that does to their lungs, even though it's to support them and to keep them alive, it still caused them a lot of issues. And as I said, things have changed, things have shifted now. There's much more gentle ways of ventilation, but there's still physical effects of being born prematurely, whether that's around growth, whether it's the gut, it's the development, it's the brain development, all of these things. There's countless struggles that premature babies can have over normal, if we can say that, term babies. But from a soul perspective, they get to have this very different experience of life. And they often also get to set up the wound first, to have that separation, to have that trauma, to have that kind of being, behind the eight ball from the get-go. And, that sense of abandonment or that sense of fear or that sense of loneliness or isolation or all of these things that can be planted from birth. And this isn't a judgment to the medical system or to any parents around this. It's just that the reality, when a baby is separated from their parents for whatever reason, it's going to impact them. It's going to cause trauma. But when I tune into these babies, they're not distressed about that. So many of them have said, well, of course, like I come here to learn about abandonment. I know I have a big wound around that. It's happened. I've experienced a lot of abandonment in previous lives. And you know what? I've come here to have a different experience of that and to have the opportunity to see it from a different perspective and to make choices and to grow and to learn around that. And so for me, a really powerful way for me to learn and grow and have experiences around that is to be born as a premature baby and to start off life separated from my mother. This is the types of information that babies share around this. So there's no distress, there's no feeling of being wronged, there's no resentment. It's just, this is how I plan to start my life. Like this is what I needed. Like I wanted to experience this wound so that I could go on to explore that. And then depending on their life path and their journey and the decisions they make will depend on whether they allow that wound to continue to affect them and have history repeating itself, or whether they choose to learn from that, to grow through that, to rise above that, to support others with that. So on the soul level, it can be very purposeful and very powerful to have the trauma, have the wound happen straight away. There's nothing we need to protect babies from, because another thing is we really need to start seeing these babies as these wise, powerful, mature beings that they are, like we all are on the soul level, and to stop seeing these babies as these clueless, defenseless, little clean slates, because in my experience, they're not. They all come with baggage. They all come with past life history. They all come with wounds, with traumas that they're here to heal or learn, new traumas to experience, to learn and grow through. So they're not clean slates. They're not these innocent little beings. They may seem like it because their energy is very pure when they're born, but they all come with a history, just like we all do. And so that's another thing that really helped me to see these babies differently, that they weren't clean slates. They came to have this journey. And so many of the babies that I work with are like, we don't want a clean slate. Like, seriously, what's the point of that? How do we grow from a clean slate? We don't. And I'm always amazed and surprised by the willingness of the soul to grow and to learn through their human experiences, especially the experiences that we as humans really, really struggle with. So that's been a real eye-opener for me. And so that's the souls that where prematurity is planned. It's very intentional, it's very purposeful. As I said, there's often things set up during pregnancy to almost ensure that that's how it happens, because that's what they need. That's their life purpose in many ways, is to have these experiences that they can then learn and grow through in their life. So that's one part of the souls that I communicated with, one cohort, I guess you could say, of these souls. Another cohort was babies that were more surprised where they were. They were a little bit, okay, what's going on here? Like, how did I end up here? They're a little disorientated. But again, in my experience, these souls, while they may not have planned it or decided, yes, this is how I'm going to start my life, they always know, and I don't know how they know this, but they always know on some level that it's a possibility. And I think that's important to remember, because with any birth, with any pregnancy, there's always the possibility of loss. During our lifetime, we have many different, what I call, exit points. These times in our life where our soul can make a decision to leave. And during pregnancy is one of the most powerful and potent times for a soul to leave. And often, as we've mentioned in previous episodes, souls will choose to take those exit points. And it's like this sliding door type experience that's going on. But what I've learned is that all souls who are coming to Earth have some kind of plan, and we've talked about this. But as with all plans, they don't always go to plan, if that makes sense. And so while there can be a rough outline, a rough guide, what I find is that there's also room for movement. There's also flexibility. I don't believe that anyone, either on Earth or in spirit for that matter, can know exactly what's going to happen. You know, it can be highly orchestrated, like I've just mentioned with some premature babies, but a lot of things, even spirit doesn't know how it's going to unfold until it happens. But the way I tend to see it is there's different timelines. And look, I think there's hundreds probably of timelines available to us in any given moment, depending on what path we choose to take or what decisions we make or our behavior, our actions, all of these things. And so with birth, there's also that. And I'm going to do a separate episode on the birth portal because it's a pretty wild one, but it's also very, very unpredictable. And so what I've learned is that souls approaching the birth portal, they know on some level, they can kind of see the way through, but there's all these other possibilities as well, depending on how literally each moment unfolds will lead to the next, which eventually will allow a particular timeline to unfold. But even spirit doesn't know exactly what that is. So babies could come to Earth or approach the birth portal with a few different options that even they can see. It's like it could go this way, it could go that way. This might happen, that may not happen, maybe it will. But what tends to happen is, the way I see it anyway, is that one tends to feel more stronger than the other. Or the most likely from where they are before going into labor and all of these things. And if you want to learn more about this, I did do an episode early on. I will put it in the show notes for you around understanding timing and timelines, where I talk more about this. So with these premature babies, they often know it's a possibility. It's like, well, I thought it could happen. I knew it was a possibility, but I wasn't really sure how it would unfold. And again, coming back to why souls are coming to Earth and what they're here to learn and grow through, there's also different ways to have those experiences as well. And as I mentioned previously, with some babies, it's prematurity is a great way to set up that original wound if that's what they're looking for. Whereas others, they could also have the wound of abandonment or separation, loneliness, all of these things that they're here to learn. But it's like one opportunity is through birth. One opportunity or way to set that up is through being born as a premature baby. Or it might not be until they're a teenager or an adult where they have a relationship that really deeply causes or triggers a wound around abandonment, for example. Sometimes there's a little flexibility in how those wounds or those traumas can be initiated. Like, what can be the initial situation or trauma that pierces those, that creates that experience for us here on Earth. So, but even for these babies who find themselves in the nursery, who knew it was a possibility, weren't really sure how the birth portal was going to unfold, not sure where they'd end up, even those babies, even though they tend to be more surprised and confused and disorientated, they're still not resentful. They're just like, well, now I need to navigate this journey. And that's what I find is a huge difference between the soul and the human. And that's that the soul is very accepting. It's just like, okay, we're here now. What do we do now? What's our next step? Whereas generally us humans will resist it to the nth degree. So, as I said, these souls, they're not distressed. They are like, okay, this is where we're going now. This is where we are. And we will do what we can do to navigate through this or journey through this. And more with a sense of curiosity, almost like an adventure, which sounds crazy. It's like, how can a unplanned prematurity feel like an adventure? But on the soul level, it does, because it's unpredictable, it's uncertain, it's unknown. And for the soul, that's a playground. But for us humans, it can be very painful and very challenging. I've been feeling a soul around me for a little while, even before I started recording this episode. This is a feminine feeling soul, and her name is Lavender, which is strange. I don't often get the names of souls, but I feel like she has some wisdom to share with us around this topic. I feel like she is already here on the earth as a baby girl and was born as an early prem. I'm feeling around the 24-week mark. And I feel like she wants to share some insights and guidance around her journey as a planned premature baby born at 24 weeks as a baby girl. I knew what I was coming into. It wasn't a surprise for me. I wasn't shocked. I wasn't devastated. I wasn't traumatized. I knew this was how I wanted to start my life. I knew that it would be something different for me. I knew that it would be a new experience for me. And I'm here to learn about the new. I want to understand the newness of the earth. I don't want to do the same things that I've already done in the past. What's the point of that? How can they serve me? How can they help me grow? I've been there, done that. I want to have new experiences. And my experience being born at 24 weeks was very challenging for my human self, and also for my parents. I saw a side of them that was very difficult even for me to see. I saw their pain. I saw their wounds. I saw all the sorest parts of themselves being triggered almost on a daily basis by myself and my journey, by the environment that we're in, by the staff. It was really hard for me to witness that in them. But I could also see their souls. I could see how much they were learning and growing and expanding. And even though this experience was literally ripping their hearts wide open, what was so beautiful for me to see was how wide their hearts were. And I needed this from them. For them to support me in the way that I needed to be supported, in order for them to parent me in the way that I needed them to be parented, they needed to have their hearts wide open. They were so closed down before. They were so shut down, not only to the outside world, but also to each other. And during my experience, I was able to see that openness again. And that openness, even though I know it was challenging for them and traumatizing for them, and still is, even though I'm 3 years old now, what has been so powerful is our journey together. I feel the intensity of their love for me so much more deeply than they would have had capacity for before. And so this has really supported me on my journey, and it's helped them to love me in the way that I love them, because they're more open to love now, because love took them to parts of themselves that they didn't know existed, let alone had felt before. And while they do not see this in the same way I do, I'm okay with that, because it's really supporting me on my journey. And I knew my journey was going to be difficult. I knew that being born so premature, it was going to be very challenging for my physical body, for my energy field, and it was also going to affect me for the rest of my life. But I was ready for that. I was up for that. And I was actually excited for that journey, because it's also opened me. It's allowed me to have a very different experience of the earth and a very different beginning for my life. I appreciate life so much more now. I had to work hard to stay here on the earth. There were many, many times where I could have left. It would have been so easy for me to leave. Being born at 24 weeks, I had many opportunities to be able to leave the earth. But every single time I chose to keep going. I chose to survive. I chose to say yes. And this is going to set me up. It already has set me up for such a powerful journey ahead, where now I get to say yes, and I know that I can follow through. I know that I can commit. I know that I can stay the path. Because I did it, and I continue to do it every single day. So please know that it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't something gone wrong. It wasn't something that shouldn't have happened. For me, it was very purposeful, and it has been so powerful on my journey. I have joy around my journey. I am proud of the journey that I have undertaken. I am proud of how it has prepared me for the journey ahead. And the same with my parents. They also, every single time they had to say yes, even when they were being told no. They had to keep the faith. They had to keep the hope going, even when they didn't know how they could find it again. But they continued. And so we've had the same lesson in many ways, just from different perspectives. And this has united us and actually connected us in a much more deeper way. A deeper way than we could ever have had if I'd been born naturally and healthy at term. There's no way we would have the depth of connection that we do now. So for this reason alone, let alone all the other reasons out there, I am grateful. I am grateful for my journey. I am grateful for their journey. And I'm so glad that I was able to come to Earth in this way. I'm just going to leave this episode here. Leave you with the energy, with these words. Be gentle. Allow the energy to sink in if it resonates. Park it if it doesn't. But be gentle with yourselves. Thank you for tuning in to Babies from Beyond. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to leave me a review just wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, head over to Instagram and give me a follow at Born Energy, and check out the show notes for more ways that you can connect with your baby's soul, including one-on-one readings and online programs to support you. Until next time, trust your journey and your baby. Take care.